morning for this sermon. Paul Chaddick has already read it. There's a lot of meat up front. You have to pace yourself, okay? You have to stay awake because you will not understand anything I say to you from this point forward as your pastor if you don't listen to the meat today, okay? I'm not telling you a single personal story. We're talking concepts, all right? Today we're going to talk about physics. It's your favorite. And I am going to agitate Dr. Carl Ralston. Now, if you're from Marshfield, you know him as Molly's Carl. But he is Dr. Carl Ralston, and I'm going to agitate him because I'm going to use physics to talk about organizations, and because I refuse to define all of the laws of thermodynamics. In fact, I'm going to try not to say thermodynamics more than one more time. I will probably fail, because all of us don't know what that is. And we don't have to understand thermodynamics to understand the Word of God. Praise be to God, although today it would help if you knew like this much. But to get to thermodynamics, we have to talk about systems. And systems we know about. Systems we have and we're a part of. I've always loved systems theory. I started studying political systems in college. Then I worked in management consulting where I helped businesses understand their own systems and where they were in larger systems. And then I went to seminary and I studied all kinds of systems. You have a digestive system. You know how that works. Enough. You know systems, you're part of systems, you'll be okay. You get what a system is. A system is a set of things that work together. An interconnected network. So you could, here we go, that's a graphic representation of systems, right? So you could see how something mechanical could be a system, or how a family could be a system, or church could be a system, or a country could be a system. A system generally has some inputs and outputs. It interacts with its environment. Now, the kind of system I'm talking about does not exist in a vacuum. Okay, we're not going to be talking about isolated systems. I'm talking about a family, a church, an organization. They are affected by what's going on in the environment around them, right? And they can affect the environment they're in. So systems are generally classified in three ways. We're going to look at only two of them because we're not talking about vacuums. Systems, not vacuums, like where there's nothing. Systems can be open, okay? And that means the system exchanges energy and matter with its environment. So the classic example of an open system is a pot with water in it on a stove. It's getting heat from the stove. It's putting heat out into the environment. It has water in the pot, and it's putting the water out into the environment through steam, right? The system is using heat to change the matter, which in this case is the water. So this system is exchanging both energy through heat and matter through water with its environment. You see that? Heat's coming in, heat's going out, matter going out. But then you have closed systems, which will exchange energy, but not matter. So the exchange with the environment is limited. If I poured the hot water from the open system into a hot water bottle, and it wasn't one of the horrible ones I had in China, and I sealed it shut, it would ideally be a closed system because it would interact with the environment through energy. It would put off energy, right? You would put it against your hip or your back of your neck or wherever you needed the hot water bottle, and you would get the warmth out of it, but there's no matter exchange. There's no steam coming out. It's not putting anything out. So that is a closed system, and that's an open system. Got it? Kind of. Okay. So we can apply these concepts to social systems, to the systems we're a part of. You know families that have kind of open approach to their family system. They're the house that has the neighbor kids walking in and out, and the kids' school friends come in and get a snack out of their refrigerator and leave, and your kids aren't even home. They have a garden and they share it, and everybody that comes here is family. That's an open system. And there are families that operate like closed systems. I pull in my garage, I put the garage door down, and then I get out of my car. I might homeschool my kids. They're just pretty self-contained. They work, they go home. They're affected by the environment, but they limit that effect, right? They're not exchanging everything. And you can imagine churches, this is easier to understand than water, but you can now imagine churches that are open systems and closed systems. Some churches are open systems to their environment. People flow in and out. Who do they try to take care of in these churches? Well, they try to take care of the community around them. Open system churches do not exist to fill their own needs. Their mission field is out there. Their mission field is not their building and the people they already have. They're a group of interconnected people working for God's will to be done in the community, and they think they're the agents who need to help bring that up, working together from the same place, and they exchange energy and matter with the environment around them, with the world around them. That's an open system church. And then there are the closed system churches. And they're mostly concerned with what's going on inside their building, inside the system itself. And they're not worried about working in the world around them. They're worried about their system. Now, from my perspective, as a systems nerd that has listened to a lot of churches tell me about their struggles, I think the single biggest cause of church failure in our country is churches being closed systems. Because over time, what happens to the hot water bottle? It gets to be the same temperature as the environment around it, right? Or it grows cold. And when that closed system church realizes it needs new people, have you ever visited a church that really needed new people? It's not because they need more people to fulfill a greater mission. It's because they need new people to power their own system. And no one wants to spend their time powering someone else's system, except the people who've always been in the system. So it's an impossible sell to new people. I've had new people say, you walk in a church, you can just smell it. They need me or they're gonna die. I have to go. Right? And these churches, these closed system churches, get bitter because no one wants to join us and do our thing so we can stop. And it just gets worse and worse until all the energy and matter is gone. It's all in disorder. So if you're wondering what kind of system you are and you're in person, I invite you to swivel around and wave at the booth. And if you're worshiping at home or wherever, we'd like you to maybe snap a photo of you waving back or put in a wave emoji or say hi or something. This is one way your system is open. This is one way, just one way your system is open. So now that we've covered why churches are dying, it's a light Sunday. You got a softball last week. Now that we've covered dying churches, household dynamics, and some of our physics for the day, let's talk about Dan. Now, I used to have a dog named Dan. This is not that Dan. This is a city in the north of Israel. It's about the northernmost point. So it's the red circle up there. There's a territory down here named Dan, but we're talking about the city all the way up there next to the Arameans. That city. You know, we describe our country as New York to LA. I know the Midwest loves it when we do that. New York to LA, but when your country's shaped like that, who cares from this side to this side, right? You want to go north to south. And so Israel described itself as Dan to Beersheba, from north to south. And Dan was really the gateway to the Mediterranean and to the east. Dan was a trade city, and so it traded hands a lot. And it hosts one of the tributaries that forms the headwaters of the Jordan River. So it's actually a nature preserve now. It's very, very lush for Israel. It's very lush. But Dan wasn't always known as Dan. It was known as Laish, a Canaanite city, before it was taken over and resettled and renamed by the tribe of Dan, who had their own territory, but also took that city. Dan was the name of one of Jacob's sons. Jacob got a new name, and it was Israel. And Israel had how many tribes? 12 tribes after the sons of Jacob, or Israel. 10 of the tribes settled in the north. Let's see that map. And 2 of them, next map, and 2 of them settled in the south, which became known as Judah. Now, Judah, this kingdom of Judah down here, they had all the power. They had all the power. The temple was there, Jerusalem was there, it was the capital. Anybody who was anybody went down to Judah. And when David was in power, that was the capital of the whole united monarchy, north and south. But then the united monarchy fell apart after the death of Solomon, David's son, and Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. This is so confusing, I know. Rehoboam, son of Solomon, took the south. Let's go back. Not this slide. Rehoboam is in the south. And then Jeroboam, who was just like a guy that worked for Solomon, he took over the whole north. And in today's scripture, Jeroboam in the north does what Bible authors think is like a very, very, very bad thing. It's called the sin of Jeroboam. They're not one country anymore. They've split. It was not a loving split. So their place of worship, the only place they can make sacrifices and do some of the parts of their religion, is where? It's in another country now, right? It's down in Jerusalem, and Jeroboam is going, if they keep going back there, we're going to lose our identity as a country. They can't go down there. He doesn't want the South to be this powerful place and have this hold over their religion. So he sets up 2 new places of worship. How convenient for my people. Now the people of the vast north can worship at either Bethel or way up north at Dan. He'll give them holy places and priests of their own. They set up new holidays. Who does that sound like? The Samaritans in Jesus' day. And there's a reason that's the same. But now the people of the north can worship, and they won't be tempted to go back to Jerusalem, and we won't swing back towards Jerusalem in the south. So he builds them altars, and he puts golden calves on them. Does this sound like a great idea? And he says to them, "These are your gods, Israel, that brought you up out of the land of Egypt." Who is he quoting? Aaron in the Exodus. Remember Aaron, the Israelites, where's Moses? He's been gone for a day. We better get new gods. And so he goes and builds a golden calf, and he sets it up, and he says, "These are your gods, Israel, that brought you up out of the land of Egypt." And Moses comes down from the mountain where he's been talking to God, and he is so mad that he burns the golden calf, he grinds it into powder, he mixes it with water, and he feeds it to him. And let me just say, our digestive systems are not supposed to run on gold. So they did not feel good for a long time. Thanks, Moses. So Jeroboam, the king in the north, I should say, in his desire to keep them from going back to Jerusalem, made them go way back to the worst days of disorder when they were a bunch of people wandering in the desert trying to build a civilization because they had no land of their own. He took them back to their worst moments, generations back to Egypt, to old sin, to what they used to do. And why would he do this? Why? Because we like what we used to do. We like what we used to do. We understand what we used to do. We knew the rules of what we used to do. We knew who decides what and what we used to do. What we used to do, it didn't always work, but man, it feels comfortable to do it again, even if it doesn't accomplish what we want to accomplish. And best of all, we know where God was back when we did what we used to do. So in closed systems in physics, there is this complex concept called entropy, which has to do with the measure of disorder in a closed system. Now, the second law of thermodynamics includes the idea that the universe tends towards entropy. What that means is everything is trying to get out of whack. Nobody wants to stand in line. You know how lines start, right? And how lines end up, because everybody's all over the place. Things are moving toward less order, and energy becomes less available for the work the system is supposed to do because it's being spent in all these ways of people getting random. So to take it out of physics, a room that is not picked up just gets messier over time. There's a raccoon in that picture. It's just getting out of control. A family that doesn't address their issues tends towards more disorder and more dysfunction in further generations. We often say that organizations tend towards entropy. Our organizations want to get messy. They want to get disordered. They go back towards what we knew and create disorder in what we're doing now, rather than spending energy on what we're interconnected to do. So some energy remains for the mission, but more and more is just kind of spent arguing about stuff. And Jeroboam made them a golden calf at Dan and said to the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of the Exodus, "These are your gods, Israel, that brought you up out of the land of Egypt." Entropy, disorder. And although the story was different in the South, like there weren't any golden calves, once those countries split off from each other, they kind of lost the thread. And they slipped further and further and further into disorder when they were united and working together as God's people. They were okay, but then they just descended into higher entropy along the arrow of time. Now, during the excavation of Dan at Tel Dan, because a tell is a mounded area under which there are layers of past civilizations. During the excavation of Tel Dan in 1993, a scholar caught sight of something out of the corner of his eye. He registered a word or two, some lettering in foreign language marked into clay. And even though their leader was hurrying them, "We got to get done, we got to get done, we got to go," he went to go look at this thing that caught his eye, and the light hit it, and he found it, and he made one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th centuries for those who watch archaeology related to the Bible. He found what is known as the Tel Dan stele. Now, a stele is a piece of clay that has words carved into it, because they didn't have a lot of paper. This is the Tel Dan stele, and that's all it is. And there are words of a foreign king carved into it, celebrating his victory over the people of Dan and that king of Judah from the house of David. It was the oldest mention, that right there is the words relating to David. Those are the words relating to David. This is the oldest mention of David as a king of Judah outside of the Bible itself. There were later things that talked way, way back of David, but there was nothing contemporary with David or Solomon. There was nothing First Temple until this was found in Dan. And suddenly people were like, oh my gosh, David was real. He was a king of Judah. Oh, it's proof, right? And it was new and exciting and controversial. And people were asking, what does that really say? What does it really mean? Maybe we should go back and see what else is under there. So recently, scholars have begun excavating Tel Dan all over again. I'm guessing Indiana Jones is going to show up looking for the golden calf. Because there's more there. There's layers and layers and layers and layers of civilization. Layers and layers and layers of missions that succeeded and failed over time as these groups of interconnected people tended toward entropy. And you know Jeroboam is watching from wherever he is, saying, great, I can't believe my city gets excavated and all they want to talk about is David, 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 David. Should have stayed on mission, Jeroboam, because that's the key to fighting entropy. Not in physics, because we don't really fight it in physics, but in our churches. We are called individually to be disciples of Jesus Christ, and we are called as a group to be Christ's body in the community, to the community, to serve the community and the greater world as a place where God's grace and love are shared, where we are a group of people who reflect the light of Christ to the people around us so people can see it, not just all in the same room lit up, but out there lit up for people who don't know yet. We are formed by God to support the mission of Jesus Christ, the mission of God in the world. We are an interconnected group of people working for God's will to be done in our community, working together from the same place, out of the same place, exchanging energy and matter with the world around us in an open system. And our biggest challenge is our hidden natural desire to close up and march toward entropy, trying to disorder our shared organization back to focus on ourselves because it is more comfortable to focus on ourselves. When pastors see each other and we say, hey, how's it going at your church? The most common answer is trying to go back to Egypt. It wasn't great there, but at least we knew what to expect. And if you ever find yourself feeling that way, I'll go back to that thing I know wasn't the way I need to be, but at least it's comfortable. If you feel that way about church, about another organization you're involved with, because y'all are involved with a lot of stuff, in your relationships, in your family, in any system you care about, I'm going to tell you very quickly the lesson of Jeroboam. Stay on mission. It's a faith issue. Stay on mission. It's a faith issue. We have to remember that even if we could go back to the way it used to be, when it was comfortable, because we knew how God was with us then, if we could go back, God wouldn't be there. Because God did not stay in the past. We knew God was with us then, but we have to trust, and this is the faith issue, that God is with us today. We may not see it as clearly as we can looking back, but God is with us today because that's who God is. And God will be with us tomorrow. That's where God will be. North or south, east or west, God is with us in Dan or in Marshfield. Right now and tomorrow, wherever God takes us. Stay on mission. It's a matter of faith. Do we really believe God only worked back then when we were comfortable? Or do we believe God is with us right now and that someday we will look back and say, these were the comfortable days, right? Our mission is to create new disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. Now. Amen.